Hello, and welcome to Debunk It, the podcast where we take a topic, take some myths, ideas, or misconceptions, and try to debunk them. I'm your host, TJ Kelly, and today I'm joined by Lindsay Skidmore.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
So today's topic is emo and goth subcultures. I'm very excited for this one. Before we get into this, I just want to remind everyone that we are not experts. Our opinions should not be taken as facts. So where do you want to start with this?
So there is a lot of controversy around this topic, and I myself am an emo kid and aspiring goth girl, so I thought I'd discuss them. And one of them is that emo and goth are the same thing. And while it's true that they are related and that emo is a style derived from goth, the two are actually pretty different. I mean, they are similar in the way that they're associated with similar themes like death, romance, mental health, self-expression, and that they both can have the similar dark clothing styles. Goth rock music, on one hand, has a heavier sound and originated from the 80s punk movement of the UK, with a fashion style that's much darker and a bit more elegant and feminine, I guess, and heavier on the metal jewelry, which took inspiration from the Gothic Victorian era fashion styles. Emo, on the other hand, took a more mainstream approach, with a more unique alternative pop-punk indie rock sound, with elements of both pop and some goth undertones. Its fashion styles are more laid back and mainstream, but it still has elements of that goth fashion, like the black clothing and makeup, as I said. It's like you can be a goth, you can be an emo, or you can even be both, but being part of one community of the two does not immediately make you part of the other.
I feel like that's something a lot of people don't understand. You see the word emo and you see the word goth, and you kind of think they're both the exact same thing.
Exactly.
There's not really the division that there should be. So I feel like that's an important thing to bring up.
Yeah. And then the next one, probably the biggest one perhaps, is that they promote things like depression, self-harm, suicide, and violence. And while the bands in these scenes, such as most prominent ones like My Chemical Romance and The Used, do address these topics in their music, they don't necessarily promote them. Much of society often blurs the line between emo kids and cutters, blaming bands for these kids' mental illnesses and problems, when really the kids find solace in the music because of their mental health problems they deal with, which are most of the time not just faked for attention either. They resonate with the lyrics and don't feel so alone when they have this music to turn to. They often hide their problems from others around them because of shame or fear of a stigma and turn to online communities of other emos or goths who understand what they're going through and encourage getting help. Some in these communities, though, might even just enjoy the music and not even battle mental illness. Like Gerard Way sings in My Chemical Romance's song Cemetery Drive, singing songs that make you slit your wrists, it isn't that much fun. So just because the song addresses a sensitive topic, like self-harm, does not mean it promotes it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like it's an important thing to bring awareness that self-harm is a thing. But speaking out about it isn't promoting it. It's bringing awareness to the topic.
Right.
So I feel like it's also an important thing to talk about.
Yeah. And as for violence, many goth rock acts address violence in a way that calls out certain people or governments for being violent or discriminatory towards them and other social rejects. So most of the violence associated with the goth scene is violence from people outside of the scene towards them. So basically, the music in both scenes encourage self-expression and seeking help if you're struggling. The world sucks, but there's beauty in it is essentially the real message.
Yeah, I feel like there's this terrible stigma around goth music, that it's dark and dangerous and just super violent, but I feel like that's so far from the actual truth.
Exactly. And like, not everyone in the goth scene or emo scene struggles with mental health, but these scenes are openly accepting towards people who are struggling, who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, or simply just different from others. Because violence against goths and emos is a hate crime. And I'll give you an example here. There was the murder of Sophie Lancaster, who was a goth teen from Manchester, England, and she was murdered in 2007 because she was goth, which has kind of brought out the public outcry for acceptance of these kids.
Yeah, I feel like people are hesitant to accept goth culture just because it's so different from tradition, but at the same time, I think that's what makes it so powerful. It's people speaking out about tradition and making their own voices be heard.
You're right. And then the last myth is probably that goths spend their free time worshiping the devil and performing sacrifices, or that all emos spend their free time being totally antisocial and writing dark literature. While some might actually do these things, most do not. Any typical goth or emo might just spend their time doing normal people things like shopping, going out to eat, watching movies, or, most notably in these communities, going to concerts. You don't have to enjoy true crime, horror, or Satanism to be goth, and you don't have to write dark literature, be a desperate attention seeker, or be antisocial to be emo. Many of the fellow goths and emos I know from the online communities I'm a part of are very creative, unique, nerdy, in a good way, and kind. It's one of the best communities that I've been a part of, I think. But there is one other myth that annoys the heck out of me, that they're all white people. Like, first of all, fashion style is never immediately associated with one specific race. So people of color in the goth or emo scenes are not pretending to be white, because these styles have actually all originated from black culture in some way. So I would like to think that the goth scene and emo scene would be more accepting towards people of color.
Yeah, I feel like there's this weird stigma that they're just these pale, creepy, ghostly, satanic people. But that, I feel like I've never met any goth person that fits that description to a T.
Right.
It's such a diverse group and such a kind and loving group. And I don't understand how all these dark, twisted views of them have kind of popped up.
Exactly. Maybe it might be just because of what they wear, like how they wear all black and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like people just fear what they don't understand.
Exactly. But, like, all in all, these kids are just unique people who do normal people things. Like, we all are in some way, actually. But the actions of a few people in a community don't define that community as a whole.
And I feel like that's a very important thing for people to understand. There's not just one definition of an entire group. It's a diverse body that's made up by many individual people with different personalities, different lifestyles, that just fit under this one big, strong community.
Exactly. So, on a closing note, Mom, it was never a phase. It's a lifestyle. I got your picture. I'm coming with you. And anyway, I'm a proud emo and a proud aspiring goth. Oh, if only my parents would understand me and not make me wait until I move out to be goth.
Well, thanks for joining. It was so fun.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have to do this again sometime. This was a blast.
Yes, definitely.